Hey there, guys, and welcome back to the Travis and Damian Podcast, episode 105. We're available on anchor.fm/Travis Damian Podcast, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. Today, we're going to be talking about Hi-Fi Rush, Fire Emblem Engage, Marvel's Avengers, Justin Roiland, HBO's The Last of Us, and more. So, first, let's get into our recent activities, and then we'll get into the general news, and then everything on HBO's The Last of Us. So, I'll go first, just because my list is going to be real short, because I can't really talk about a lot of this stuff. So Chainsaw Man, I finally finished the manga. Been slowly going through it for the past year or so, just because I'm like, it's definitely one of the biggest shonen out there. And because of the anime, it's even bigger now. And I am actually getting through that as well, slowly but surely. The anime is great, honestly. If you really want to get into this series, you don't have to read the manga. The manga is great, not to say anything bad about it, because it really does do a fantastic shonen story where all the characters are pieces of shit, but somehow you love all of them in some way, shape, or form. It's very weird. But yeah, the manga, great artwork, great writing. I really do like how it was kind of paced in a sense, because I know that this is only part one, and part two's currently sort of being serialized, and part two's apparently like crazy. I'm not going to read that until it starts getting printed. But yeah, Chainsaw Man, the manga, really, really good. Hopefully I'll be able to talk about the anime next episode. But I know that, what can I say about the anime that hasn't already been said, kind of thing?
It's really good.
Yeah, it's really good.
I've watched all of it, yeah.
The animation's fantastic. The CG, maybe a little spotty within the first episode, but I know it gets better as it goes along. But moving on from there, I watched the Creed movies with my girlfriend because she also hasn't seen those. I think last time I talked about John Wick, we were also watching Creed. We were sort of alternating between the two. First we watched John Wick, and then we watched Creed, and then we sort of went back and forth until we finished all of them. And yeah, Creed, fantastic. I guess like new gen, like reboot kind of spin-off series taking place after the whole Rocky movies, which I still have yet to watch, but still the Creed movies are a lot of fun with Michael B. Jordan. It's sort of like the up and coming story of like this boxer who has the Creed name but sort of wants to make a name for themselves. And yeah, I cannot wait for Creed 3. I know Sylvester Stallone isn't a part of Creed 3 because he's very adamant about not working with the producer on it, because the producer pretty much apparently Sylvester Stallone, because he had nothing when he was making the Rocky movies, he sold the producing rights or whatever to that producer, and since then he hasn't really seen like a whole lot of money for the Rocky movies, including Creed. So it's kind of like crazy and kind of insane that that's sort of how it played out, and like there was no like negotiation from him or sort of him reaching out. So I get why he's not part of Creed 3. Well, I still go to the theaters and watch it shamelessly, yes. But yeah, I know that there's like other spin-offs with the whole like Creed franchise, and not sure if I'm gonna watch those, because it does seem like that he is just trying to like milk it and stuff. So obviously, Sylvester Stallone, he is the main person who really drove these movies to success because he's in them and because he's such a great actor. So to see him not be part of the third one is going to be a little saddening, but I understand why he sort of took that position there. But yeah, it's pretty much everything I've been doing. I've been playing the normal online games, but I'm not going to really talk about those today.
Yeah, I actually forgot. Chainsaw Man's really good because I also finished that, the anime. And I think it's really good. Like you said, I think maybe the CGI may look a little weird in the beginning, but I think just like Demon Slayer, it just uses it to enhance art scenes. So like all the fights feel like way more dynamic. Like especially like the last fight, like I feel like you kind of needed the CG there to make it feel as like dynamic as it was. So Chainsaw Man is really good. I'm really loving it so far. I heard the manga is really good as well, but I'm just gonna be an anime only guy and just watch the anime. I'm really enjoying it. But yeah, it's really good. I think it deserves all the hype. I know some people are saying, oh, it's overhyped, but I don't know. I really liked it. So yeah. All right. So anyway, we got some new games coming out, or already came out. Like surprisingly, January had like a lot of stuff coming out, which is weird because usually January is a little quiet for like most media because it's after holidays and stuff. But we got Fire Emblem Engage, and this is a one that some people were kind of skeptical towards just because it looks super anime and stuff. I mean, they're like not wrong. It's very anime. A lot of characters look like from Genshin Impact and stuff, but I like it. I think like just graphically and the presentation is like really good. Like, I think this is one of the better looking Switch games like out there, because I think the art style really helps with that. You know, it's really bright and colorful and obviously really anime looking, but just the overall presentation is really nice. Like, the UI is really clean. The battle animations are fantastic in this game. Like, you know, I think Fire Emblem always had pretty good battle animations, but this game, like, they feel really good. Like, they really react to the environment you're on. Like, I saw a GIF where they were like fighting on stairs, and then the dude on the top of the stairs like slid all the way down to hit them. I'm like, oh, that looks sick. And when the characters have like a 0% chance to hit, sometimes they like parry and then hit. It's really cool. They put a lot of attention to detail this time to all the animations and stuff. So yeah, like right away, I think the game looks fantastic. Like, I love the art style and just how the game looks. It runs like a good frame rate too. Like, I don't really notice any dips either, which is really rare for a Switch game. But yeah, in terms of all that, you know, I think the story, when I first saw this game and like directs and stuff, like, all right, I know this game's gonna have a pretty mid story. Like, there's no way it comes even close to Three Houses, and it doesn't. It doesn't really try to. You know, the story is really basic. Like, you're the chosen one, kill the evil dragon, and then that's it. That's basically the plot. There's some twists and turns, but they're really like easy to read, and you're gonna know the story by the time you like do the first cutscene. Like, it's pretty simple, but that's fair because I don't think the game is really focused on that. The game is a lot more lighter in tone. You know, the characters are more fun and stuff. And again, the real focus is really on the gameplay this time. And, you know, it's just like any other Fire Emblem. You know, you have all your units, you have the weapon triangle, all that good stuff. But everything is really polished. I forget if this was a mechanic in other Fire Emblem games, but when you hit someone with their weakness, their like weapon breaks. I forget if that was a mechanic, but if you hit someone with their weakness, not only do you do more damage to them, which, you know, that's how it usually works, the weapon breaks and they can't counterattack or do anything else. So it makes it like a lot more strategic. Like, oh, you have to make sure, you know, your unit isn't going to get broken, because then it could just get attacked for free and stuff. And of course, the emblem rings are like the other big mechanic. You could equip a bunch of emblem rings, which are characters from the other Fire Emblem games, and they give that character a bunch of passive skills and like 2 active skills. You have your engage attack, which is like a big ultimate attack, and then another skill, which is also just as strong, but you could use it like multiple times. And using the engage, you could be in your engaged state for like 3 turns. And it's a really fun mechanic, you know. They're really strong, but, you know, I think that timer on them, you know, you want to make sure you use them at the right moment and not like waste it. And the game wants you to use it, because I do feel the game is a bit tougher than Three Houses, which is nice because I think Three Houses was a bit easy. And I'm playing on hard as well because, you know, I think normal is a little too easy for Fire Emblem in general. But yeah, I think the engage rings really add a whole new like dimension to the gameplay and stuff, like when to activate it, when to use it. Like, do you save it for a boss, or do you use it against the giant hordes of enemies that come at you? So I think it's a good balance of both. But yeah, overall, I think the gameplay is very solid. Like, I love Three Houses. Like, Three Houses is probably my favorite Fire Emblem game. But, you know, I think a lot of the gameplay mechanics from that game were kind of just convoluted, like the battalions and all that stuff. Like, it doesn't really feel like it meshes too well. I think like Engage really streamlines all of that. Like, they got rid of weapon durability, which is also really nice. Like, you don't need to worry about that anymore, which is great because I always hated the weapon durability system in Fire Emblem. So yeah, Engage is a really good time. You know, just, you know, if you like Three Houses like me, it's not like that. It's more like the 3DS games, like Awakening. So if you were more into that, then yeah, I think this Fire Emblem game would be perfect for you. But yeah, having a good time with it so far. And then this game came out of nowhere, Hi-Fi Rush. So this was shown during the Microsoft Flow Direct thing they did. We're not going to talk about it because it was like a lot.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about it, but yeah, there really wasn't that much. It must have just talked about like, here's what games are coming out or whatever. Not even coming out, but like here's like updates about games that are coming out.
Yeah.
But this was the one real surprise. Like, Tango Works are the people that made Evil Within and Ghostwire Tokyo, so like you might know them from that. And they had a secret game they were working on, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm pretty interested to see what this is about. And then we get this game, which is like this beautifully like animated, like I guess like DMC game where the combat is all rhythm based. So think of DMC, but like your attacks have to land on the beat of the music. And yeah, that's his main gimmick. It's like, you know, everything is musical based. So everything in the environment is moving to the beat. Like your combat is like, you know, mostly on the beat and everything. And yeah, that's sort of like where the whole like differences between like that and DMC come from. And it works really well. So I'm not really good with games like this. You know, I played like Crypto the Necrodancer and stuff, and I really like that game. But you know, I'm really bad at keeping with the beat. I think this game does a good job there's a lot of visual indicators to help you. So if you're just good at timing, you could time it anyway without really hearing it, I guess. So that's really nice. I think the only really hard mechanic is pairing. Pairing, you have to land on a beat. And it's really hard to do that. But for the most part, there usually are a lot of visual indicators. You can actually just look at the environment and see when a beat is happening, and then you just attack on the beat. And the game just punishes you for not attacking on the beat, because I think they all land on the beat eventually. So like you just do more damage and you get some other shit when you do that. So it really doesn't punish you for not like doing that. Like if you're not like musically inclined or whatever, which is great, because I think I think the problem with Necrodancer is that you really have to be good at rhythm games plus roguelites, and I'm horrible at rhythm games. But I think this game does a great job sort of bridging the gap between the two. And, just from that gameplay standpoint, it's really fun. Like, I think it really gets going after, like, the second level. You get a lot of mechanics, and, like, it feels really good. But I think the thing that really sells it is just the graphics. The game looks fucking great, dude. Like, I love the presentation in this game. It's a great mix of, like, anime and, like, Western animation. It kind of, it's like Avatar or, like, Teen Titans, like the not Go, but like the original Teen Titans, where it's like like a good mix of like a comic book / anime sort of deal. And like the animations look so good. Like honestly, like if you could look up like just the first boss, it looks so good. And if you're not sold by the first boss, then I don't know what's gonna do it for you. But it's just a really, really fun, just beat 'em up hack and slash game with a cool rhythm mechanic, and it looks really good. Like I think the presentation, it's what really sells it to be like something really special, and I love it. Again, this came out of nowhere. This was shadow dropped when this event came out, and hopefully Tango Works makes more games like this, because Evil Within, I know people like Evil Within, but it's okay. It always kind of lives under the shadow of Resident Evil. I know Ghostwire Tokyo didn't do too well, even though it looks really cool. It just the gameplay wasn't there. I think they finally have something where like here. This is really good, and I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, I can't wait to play more of it so I can talk about it more. But yeah, the game is great. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely the standout game for me during the presentation.
Yeah.
They obviously picked I think it was 6 games or something like that, 5-6 games where they just really wanted to dive into it, and that's what you were gonna get within that direct. So it was cool to see that they showed this game off, and then they were like, hey, it's shadow dropping and it's on Game Pass, which is a huge plus for a lot of people because I feel like for a game like this, a lot of people would be like, oh, that looks like a really cool indie game, but some people may be hesitant to drop the $15 or $20 at the game price is asking. I'm not exactly sure how much this game is, because I'm probably going to get
30.
It's 30? Okay.
Yeah, you know what? It's only 30. So
that's even a even bigger sort of hurdle for most people, because it's a $30 indie game. It looks cool. It looks nice, but I think that some people would be turned off by that price point. But the fact that it's on Game Pass is if I already have Game Pass, shit, I can play this. Or you could subscribe to Game Pass, which is only $10, and then you could play it like that. So yeah,
I'm playing it on Game Pass. But honestly, I might just buy it too. Just make more games like this, please. This is really good. But yeah, Game Pass, obviously, I've already talked about Game Pass being really great. If you just want to jump in, see if you like it, and then, you just do that. Game Pass is great.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to look at this one eventually, probably after I'm done with school. But
yeah, it also looks like it's not going to be too long, maybe 10 hours max, just pretty standard length. So, yeah, not too long, really fun, and I love the presentation, everything about it. It's just really good.
All right, so now we're going to get into the general news, which is going to start with the update on Marvel's Avengers. So if you guys know, this game did not do so well. So they are officially announcing that they will be ceasing official support on September 30th, 2023, but you will still be able to play multiplayer and single player stuff still. And I believe all of the free cosmetics will be available and everything like that. So they're pretty much just trying to make sure that once they shut everything down, you can still play this game if you want to. And even if you buy the game used or whatever, you can still play it. I'm not sure if it's going to live on digital stores after that date, but I know that they said that if you purchased it, it will still be available for you to re-download through your account and things like that. So yeah, I mean, the fact that this happened, I think it was 2.5 years that they said. Yeah, 2.5 years that they sort of had this game going as a live service thing, and now they're shutting it down is, kind of apparent as to how much of a quote unquote failure that this game is, because it really did not meet the expectations that they probably were setting for themselves, and they probably got all of the DLC that they wanted to get out with all of the other heroes and all of the other Avengers out, and now they're well, we can't really sustainably continue doing this like profitably, obviously. So obviously ending it is the best course of action for them, and it is what it is to those people that really enjoyed the game. I'm sorry that this is happening, but I think that for most people it's like, oh, this was sort of like a foretold prophecy or whatever it's called.
Yeah, just the writing was on the wall for this game for a while. Yeah, like, you know, the game just didn't do very well, like, sales-wise. People were kind of just over the whole live service thing. I mean, people still are. I don't think that's really going away. And, you know, I just think... I feel like the problem with a lot of games, and this kind of extends to, like, the next thing we're going to talk about. I feel like you can't make everything a live service because, you know, there's not enough, like, time for all this stuff. You know, I think, like, most people already have a live service game in their life that they're playing and, like, would like to keep up with, like, battle passes and stuff. So the more games you introduce with it, like, you can't, like, fit into that, not market anymore just because, like, I feel like there's not enough people at that point. And you really have to show how dedicated you are to pumping new content out and stuff. And I feel like that doesn't really happen too often with, like, these big AAA games just because it takes more work to make assets and, like, gameplay stuff. And, you know, like, I think the games that do the best with live service models are games that don't look so great. like, or, like, games that kind of used to pumping out a lot of content, like, consistently. So obviously MMOs for forever, they know how to do that. I mean, even Destiny is pretty slow with some content updates just because, like, the game looks better than it is and stuff. So yeah, I feel like Avengers kind of fell into that where there wasn't enough content to keep people busy, and the content that was meant to keep people busy was just really, really boring stuff, like just grind for gear, but there's no real point in it. Like, there's some harder missions, but there's no, like, real raids or whatever. So yeah, it kind of just fell flat in its face, and it's sad too because, you know, if there was an Avengers game and it was more like the Guardians of the Galaxy game, I think that would have been really good, you know, because I really like the Guardians of the Galaxy game, and they kind of just made that into the Avengers game. That would have been great, but unfortunately that is not happening. But luckily you can still play the game because I heard the single player is still okay for this game. Yeah. But I don't know how long that's going to be the case for. Like, I don't know if that's forever or what, but, you know, maybe play it if you can because, you know, it might be gone at some point. So yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be like a, I guess, like relic within the superhero video game history sort of thing, where it's like, you know, they try to make a Avengers game finally, and then it was sort of revealed, and it was like, well, they don't look that great, and then it was revealed that it was a live service game, and then it came out, and here we are. So yeah, definitely interesting to see that, you know, now it's finally coming to an end, maybe a lot sooner or maybe a lot later than most people expected. And then moving on from there, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, so like I was saying, the Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. New game coming out, you know, leak images started popping up, and in one of those leak images showed a battle pass. So it's pretty likely that this might be a live service game as well, which again, you know, people are not very happy about because of all the whole thing with the Avengers game. And all my points about that game, you know, kind of go into this one. And again, we can't really judge it too soon because, you know, they didn't show anything officially yet, so I'm gonna wait on that opinion. But, you know, if this is like a true live service game, then I don't think this is gonna be well for this game. Like, I think this game should probably be structured just like, you know, a normal co-op like game. You know, like you have a beginning point and end point, and then that's it. You can get friends with you can pick your character, and that's it. Maybe if they want to have more missions afterward or whatever, then that's cool, I guess. And having a battle pass kind of incentivizes you to go back to older levels or something. But I'm really hoping it's just a straightforward adventure that's co-op, and that's it. Like, I don't want any of that, like, weird stuff in this game either, because that would be, like, why? From the gameplay they showed, it looks really good. So I'm hoping it doesn't, like, drag it down too much. But we won't really know until the game actually comes out. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of weird that, you know, you see like the battle pass thing. If you saw the image before it got taken down, I'm sure it's somewhere online still. But the original tweet within this Game Informer article, the image has been removed in response to a report from the copyright holder. So obviously that screenshot was real. And the fact that there was a sort of like battle pass section was a little worrying, just because the fact that you're going to be paying like $60, $70 to just buy the game, and you want us to get another battle pass on top of it. You know, me and Damian have talked about this before, but, you know, battle passes have really become a thing because of Fortnite. You know, ironically, and they're still like the only game to really do it extremely well. Not to say that like other battle passes are like complete dog shit. Some of them are. You know, like the the ones that Riot does with TFT and Valorant, those battle passes are completely fine. Literally, you just play the game, and if you have the battle pass, you get more experience for the battle pass, and you just get like cool free stuff that's like worth more or less, worth the price that you're paying for it. Then if you don't have it, you'll just get certain free things along the way, which is what I do, because I don't really buy battle passes outside of Fortnite, because I feel like Fortnite really does give you the bang for your buck kind of thing.
Yeah.
And for this one, obviously we don't know how it's going to be structured, or like how the game is even going to be structured now, because they've been so deep into development for this game. It's like, if they decide to switch it all around now, the game is going to need like a few more years of development, which I don't think they want. I think they want the game to launch this year, for better or for worse. And
Right.
It is crazy that, after Avengers, that they were still like, yeah, this is going to be a live service thing. Yeah, we're going to have a battle pass. And it's like, I don't know if they really should have that, or even features associated with that, because it has such a bad stigma within not just, superhero games, but also within just like, games that you have to buy in general that aren't free to play games.
Yeah, I agree. Like, again, hopefully it's not like the main focus. Hopefully the game is just more focused on just good co-op action. But again, we don't really know. We haven't really said much about the game in general. So
Yeah.
I'm going to wait until like maybe E3 or whatever they want to show more about this game. But yeah, I'm just going to wait till then. Hopefully, obviously this picture is real because they took it down. But hopefully it's not as intrusive as we think it is. But I guess we gotta wait and see for that.
Yeah. Moving along with more DC news, we got another trailer for Shazam Fury of the Gods, pretty much Shazam 2. And yeah, it looks a lot more fun, a lot more of like what I was looking for within a Shazam sequel. It gives us a better, I guess, idea of what the story is, which I feel like is a theme with superhero trailers. Is like the first one, it's sort of like, oh, like we're sort of back in it. And then the second one really does give you like a better, clearer idea of what the story is. Not to say that the first trailer doesn't do that, but I think the second ones usually do a better job of it because, less people are going to watch the second trailer. And yeah, it does seem like that it is just going to be more of Shazam and sort of questioning whether or not, these kids should have these powers, which is like a very good question. I guess like the higher gods or whatever are going to sort of take that away from them. And now they have to save the world. So yeah, hopefully it's just more fun action from what I saw within the first Shazam, where there was really no expectations for that movie to be good, but it did ended up being pretty funny and really entertaining. So I hope that this movie can sort of capture those same vibes and just, that overall same experience.
Yeah, I basically feel the same way. Like I really like the first Shazam. It's kind of when DC was going through a good arc. Like, they had like Wonder Woman that I'm like, yeah, these movies are pretty good. And, Wonder Woman 2, I didn't like very much. And some of the other movies they've done. But hopefully Shazam 2, it looks like it's keeping the same tone and stuff, which is nice. Shazam has always been pretty different from any of the other DC stuff. It's been more bright and colorful and like more MCU-y, I guess, if you want to put it in those words. Mm-hmm. And this is looking like it's following that sort of same formula. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully it's good. I'm not going to have too much expectations again. I'd rather, come in with low expectations and be happy than higher ones. And then, yeah. I don't know if I'm going to watch it in theaters necessarily because, I want to watch Ant-Man on February, and then I'm like, I don't know if I want to see this in theaters. I'll probably wait until it's like on HBO Max, or no, I don't know what they go on. It's HBO Max, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'll probably watch it on HBO Max whenever that goes on. But, like we said, this is probably going to be like the last, besides this and Flash, I think this is the last stuff that are really coming out for DC, right? Until James Gunn really starts like doing all his stuff, right?
Yeah, the Batman sequels in the works, the Joker sequels in the works, all that stuff that's like, I guess, like separate from everything.
Yeah.
Those are still okay, but I guess the stuff that's sort of kind of within the I guess like Snyder stuff that they had before, I guess so. Yeah. Kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting to see like what, like, this is basically it. Like this and Flash are like, yeah, this is kind of like the last of the DCU as we know it before we see what Gunn is gonna be doing. So either way, it's gonna be pretty interesting. I don't know if like Shazam's really gonna be a thing after this, but if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, then that sucks. So guess we'll see when it comes out.
No pressure. All
right, so yeah, we got a lot more news about Justin Roiland. So yeah, everyone just kind of cut ties with him. So Adult Swim for Rick and Morty, Hulu with Solar Opposites, and Squanch Games with like High on Life and stuff. So so a lot of things came out. So obviously we already knew about him with the domestic violence and stuff. That was last week. But now there was a lot of other stuff. Like he's been saying a lot. I don't know how much of it is like true or whatever, but he's been doing a lot of sussy things with a lot of minors and stuff. And apparently it was like an open secret. Like I saw on Twitter, like someone posted like some things he was saying on a podcast, like some really weird shit about minors. I'm like, what the hell? And this was from like 2010, so it was always there. So yeah, that was pretty awful. And just a bunch of other allegations and stuff. But yeah, so he's gone from everything now. And obviously for Rick and Morty, this is sort of kind of a big thing because he voices Rick and Morty. So they're obviously going to have to find voice actor replacements. And honestly, for a show like Rick and Morty, they could probably like explain that there's very like multiverse and a bunch of other Rick and Mortys. You could just change the voice to really completely different and no one gives a shit probably. So it's fine. It kind of sucks for Squanch because it just released High on Life. And that was like the big selling points, like from the guy who made Rick and Morty, and kind of can't do that anymore. So they got to find a new direction as well. And I know Solar Opposites was also, I think that was more on Justin Roiland than anything, and they also are cutting times with him. So it's cool that all these people are keeping their jobs though, like they're not like canceling them. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Canceling like their shows or whatever. No, he's canceled. So that's good for everyone that's working on them. And Justin Roiland is gone forever. So. Kind of crazy how this could all just happen because he was going up and like he was getting up there, he was releasing games, new shows, he was doing everything, and now it's all gone. So yeah, just don't be a dickhead, and then things like this don't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only one that he really left on his own volition was Squanch Games. I think the other ones they sort of just cut ties with him. Yeah, they were like, yeah, no, we're not gonna do this with you anymore. Sorry, bro. But yeah, I was kind of surprised that it took this long for him to sort of get cut from everything. I guess they were waiting for more evidence and more, I guess, like solid, standing as to where he was like as an actual person. And then they're like, now we're gonna kick you off, which is better in my opinion, because I think if it was just like a knee-jerk reaction for them to be like, nope, he's gone off of everything like instantly, that I think that would have been a little hasty. But the fact that they waited a couple of days, maybe even like a week or whatever, to really, end everything with them makes sense. It is definitely going to be interesting to see how the shows and how the projects that he was very heavily under are going to do after his departure. I hope that they do well. I'm not saying that he's like a genius or anything, but obviously like those are his creations and sort of what people liked about Rick and Morty, the Hulu show, and the High on Life game is because it was all coming from him, and he was heavily involved with them, whether it was the creative process or even just like voice acting. I know apparently for Rick and Morty, he wasn't he wasn't doing a whole lot other than the voices. Like he wasn't really part of like the creative process or anything. So maybe that's not going to change all that well, or all that much, I should say. But I know that for everything else, he was obviously very heavily involved with those things. So, hopefully they all do well. Hopefully that they're able to, be able to make some stuff that is better than what was made previously, if not to the same level. It is what it is. Sort of, another Hollywood person gets exposed for being the actual person that they are. But yeah, I wasn't exactly following anything else other than Rick and Morty, and even then I was long gone after I think season 3 or 4. I don't even know which season I last watched, if I'm being honest. So
I mean, me too. It's probably like season 3 or something is when I stopped watching. So yeah, it still kind of sucks, but I guess it happens. Like, can everyone just stop being like awful people? That'd be really nice.
Yeah, it is what it is at this point.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, we're going to talk about a little bit of HBO's The Last of Us before we get into the actual episode. So Neil Druckmann sat down with BuzzFeed, and I noticed that he does a lot of like, I guess like exposing of like, I guess like newsworthy things when he talks to BuzzFeed for some reason. I don't know why. Anyways, so he pretty much was just talking about the show, sort of how they got Pedro Pascal, how he got Bella Ramsey, et cetera, and like a lot of the things different between the game and the show. But the main things that obviously people took away from this interview was the fact that he talked about the future of The Last of Us and the future of Uncharted, because I think now he's like the CEO of Naughty Dog, or like the co-president or something. Yeah, something like that. He has a very high position at Naughty Dog. That's pretty much the main point. So yeah, the future of Uncharted, he pretty much said that we're moving on, which is a good thing. I think that was something that I was kind of worried about when part 2 of The Last of Us came out, where it was like they had no idea what they were going to do next, and it's like, what are they going to do? I hope they don't go back to Uncharted, because I feel like Uncharted with Uncharted 4 really was a solid conclusion. And if they go back again and sort of dig up what they left off, I think that would be disingenuous. So I'm glad that Neil Druckmann has said that they are moving on. So hopefully that means it is true. And when it comes to The Last of Us Part 3, it's not confirmed whether or not they're going to be working on it, because he doesn't want the story to continue if they don't have, quote, if we can come up with a compelling story that has this universal message and statement about love, just like the first and second game did, then we will tell that story. If we can't come up with something, we have a very strong ending with part 2, and that will be the end quote, which I don't mind. I think that with the ending of part 2, in my opinion, that was like a solid conclusion for this Last of Us series. I think that what a lot of people loved about Joel and Ellie was captured within these first 2 games. And I think that if they do a part 3, it has to be something really fucking good to really capture the Last of Us fan base again, because as everyone knows, part 2 really did stir up the gaming internet space a whole lot, and for better or for worse. So if they were to do a part 3, it has to be something that everyone, whether you like part 2 or dislike part 2, could really get behind on, which I think is a task that they cannot accomplish. I don't think anyone could really accomplish that.
Yeah, I mean, Naughty Dog has always been a company that kind of just drops their old IPs in favor of new ones, like after they're done. It's not like Insomniac, where it's like, okay, we're gonna keep Ratchet and have another series, like a newer series going on and stuff. Like Naughty Dog likes to usually like try something new every time, and I'm glad Uncharted actually got like an ending, which is nice. Jag and Daxter never really got that, so that kind of sucks for them. But at least Uncharted, they got like a good ending and stuff, so that's nice. They don't really have to continue it; they could just keep it there. Maybe if some other company might want to use the IP at some point, then sure. But yeah, I think Uncharted probably left on a good note there. And with Last of Us, honestly, I think they're probably gonna make a third one. Like, I feel like there's too much money in them not to make a third one at this point. So I think they might do a third one, then call it a quits on Last of Us, because it's kind of like on the top of the world right now. Obviously, I think there's already been so many rumors that they're making a new IP, so they're probably gonna do that first. But I guess we'll see what's gonna happen with Naughty Dog in the next few. I mean, they still gotta release Factions as well, because that's sort of the big thing they're working on right now. So so The Last of Us IP is probably still good for a couple of years, but yeah, Uncharted being done doesn't surprise me. And hopefully Last of Us Part 3 doesn't cause as much controversy as 2 did, because Jesus Christ. There's right rumors that there are like sort of having a proper PS5 version, which also again wouldn't surprise me because of the TV show. Like the unit sales of part 1 and the remaster went up by like 300% after the show aired. So it really wouldn't surprise me to do a remaster of part 2 when we're closer to that. But yeah, I guess I could actually play the game and give my thoughts once I actually do play it. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what Naughty Dog does, because they're in a really, really cool position of being able to have like a really high budget TV show and finishing a bunch of projects and stuff. So I guess we'll see where they go from here.
Yeah, I think that if they were to do a part 3, which like you said, money is involved, but I think Neil Druckmann said that they have the benefit of having Sony behind them, and they're being like, yeah, you could kind of do whatever you want because they're Naughty Dog, which is, something that not every single studio can really say about themselves. So, we'll wait and see. I know that Factions is, I guess, quote unquote, their next big part of like the Last of Us world that they're building. So I wonder how well that's going to do, especially within the multiplayer landscape that we're in, having, I guess, like a Last of Us multiplayer game where it's literally just the multiplayer, and how well that's going to do when it's in competition with things like Fortnite, Call of Duty Warzone, etc. So, yeah. Now we will move on into the HBO show. We are going to talk about full spoilers for episodes 1 and 2, because those are the only ones that are currently out right now, and we'll sprinkle in some news here and there as we talk about the show. So, let's talk about the premiere first, because I think that this was honestly like the perfect way they could really introduce the show. I think that the prologue segment at the beginning was like really genius, where they were showing like, I guess, like these really old timey like talk show hosts just talking about like, you know, viruses and, you know, mushrooms and shit like that. And it was like, well, you know, if the world gets warmer, and I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah, I was like, look ass.
Oh no. So yeah, I really do like that beginning sequence. And apparently Neil Druckmann didn't want that at the beginning, and then I think one of the other creators on the show just filmed it, shot it, and then showed it to him, and then he was like, all right, yeah, that's good. So, you know, definitely very interesting to see how I guess like the behind the scenes stuff, which I'm getting into like a whole different thing, but like seeing like the, I guess like final like 5-10 minutes of the show where they just like talk about it is very fun. I know that there's like a podcast where they really dive into like the behind the scenes stuff, which
Talking
I definitely
Dead.
yeah, I guess like Talking Dead type beat kind of thing. So I definitely need to listen to that. But yeah, Damian, what'd you think about, I guess, just like the prologue stuff?
Yeah, so I really like the cold openings they're doing, where it's showing like sort of like the sort of medical scientist perspective on all this. Obviously, they do it again in episode 2, but we'll get there when we get there. But in terms of this one, I think it was a really good way to sort of I guess sort of bridge it into more reality, right? Like being like, you know, like, oh, this fungus, like, you know, yes, it does like, you know, sort of reanimate the dead for ants and stuff. And, you know, this guy's talking about like how, oh yeah, it doesn't affect humans or whatever. And, you know, usually fungus doesn't do that, but him sort of explaining it more and more and sort of it feeling like a real thing. And, you know, saying with the global warming stuff and how like in a few years it might be an issue. And it really spooks the, you know, the audience and the TV, but also kind of spooks you. It's like, oh shit, like I bet that could happen in real life and stuff. You know, I think it was a really good cold opening to show like, you know, sort of background on the virus and stuff, which is something that the game doesn't really do too well. Like I think this show does a way better job sort of explaining and showing more of the science behind the cordyceps virus, because the game, again, it leaves it a lot more vague and stuff, how everything happened. All you know is mushrooms and the cordyceps stuff, like, but you don't really know much else besides that. I think the show is showing a lot more of like the science behind it, and I think it makes it scarier because like, oh, this could like like it could happen, you know, obviously it won't, but you know, it's like you bringing more science mumbo jumbo into it makes it feel more scary than it is. So I think he's done a really good job. I mean, there's the dude who made like Chernobyl too, right? Like he's the one like sort of directing and doing all that stuff. So.
I think it's him and Neil Druckmann sort of, you know, being the captains of the ship, if you will, which is very cool. And then we got to talk about Sarah, played by Nico Park, because obviously he played the games, you know, what the fuck's going to happen to her? So I'm like, okay, so how are they going to flesh out Sarah's character? And I really like the way that they made her like the main character within this episode, because you really do follow her around. You don't follow Joel to work and see him working with Tommy and shit like that. It's really just watching her do her high school stuff, her go to the I guess like watch store to like get you know, get that fixed, and then see her come home and, you know, hang out with the neighbors and everything like that. So I really do like that they were able to give Sarah like a proper introduction and really get the viewer invested into her character.
Yeah, it basically felt like an extended scene of like when you play as her in the beginning of The Last of Us, which is good. Like at first I was worried it was just gonna like stretch it out and be like, okay, we gotta fill in more time or whatever on the sequence or whatever. But no, I think it really did benefit a lot more to her character, since, you know, you don't really get to know her that well in the game. You know, she's, you know, spoiler, she dies in like the first 40 minutes. And we said it with this, but I feel like you get more of her character in this one. We see her in school, you know, you see, like, I also love how eerie everything feels the day before. Like everything is like slightly off. Like you hear the news in the radio, you hear like a bunch of helicopters. Some people are acting weird or ravy. Like just the lighting, like it's really good. Like it's very unsettling. Especially the fucking grandma.
Oh yeah, bro.
I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, that scene was actually like kind of scary. I was like, yeah, what the fuck is going on?
Because I don't really see The Last of Us as a scary thing, at least when I play it. Like there's some scares and stuff, but it's not like, you know, it's a lot more like Resident Evil 4, where it's like it's more action-y and stuff. Yeah, this one really is selling the horror a lot more, which is really cool. And yeah, I think the whole pre-outbreak scene was done very well, because obviously after all the, like, I guess, sort of extended scenes not in the game, right when the outbreak happens, it basically plays out like the game, where it's like the same camera shot throughout the car and stuff. Like everything is almost playing out exactly the same, which is good.
Yeah.
Like I think that was a really good recreation of the scene, and seeing it happen in live action was really cool.
Yeah, I really do like the way that they were just like directing the show in a way where, you know, it's not like them taking everything frame by frame and everything on the story the same from the games to the show, because they want to give more context, give it more life, more world building. And I really do appreciate that, because this really is like the best video game adaptation by far, like one of the best when it comes to like live action anyways. You know, you can say Arcane's better, which I might agree with, but you know, for a live action adaptation from a game to a show, this is like by far it. And the fact that they were able to introduce so many like elements from the games, like having Tommy be there that morning with, you know, Sarah and Joel was very cool, because I'm like, oh, okay, people get to see who Tommy is before he gets separated off, and Joel's like on this sort of like journey trying to find him and stuff like that. So, you know, I really do like the way that this show is just like directing it and just like pacing it as well. And I know that they're obviously like taking liberties with the material. You know, a lot of the action sequences that you would play with like the gunfights and everything like that, they're not really here. It's a lot more about, you know, getting to know the characters and them just talking. But when there is action, it's like fucking intense.
Yeah, and you know, it makes sense, because in a game, obviously you want gameplay, like you still want to play the game. So having more combat scenarios makes sense, but in a show, especially like a zombie show, like you don't want to get into combat like ever. So it makes sense that they're a lot more stealthy. And like when a combat encounter does happen, even against just one infected, it feels like a big deal. In the game, I'm just gonna pop him in the face, and it doesn't really matter that much. Or I'm just gonna stand behind you, do my little stabby stab, but you know, it doesn't work as well in a show. So I think they really adapted all the video gamey stuff well by keeping it to like video games, you know?
Exactly.
And yeah, I really do like a lot of the I guess smaller plot points. They kind of retweak a lot of things, but it's not enough to really like ruin like the original vision of the show. Like in the beginning, like after the whole outbreak scene and Sarah dies and stuff, you know, Joel's like now looking for Tommy now. Like in the original game, he wasn't, right? He was just like their mission was like weird in the beginning. It's like, okay, we gotta get our guns back from Robert and all this stuff. Like, it didn't really like make that much sense. Now they really connected more to like what's actually happening to the story. Like now Joel wants to find Tommy. Like he wants a car battery specifically. Like he doesn't get it later. Like it's a lot more connected now, so it like flows better, which is nice.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting because they changed his dynamic with Tommy now, because he wasn't really talking to him, right? Like throughout most of the game until they actually went there.
I think it was because he joined the Fireflies that he was like, I'm not talking to you anymore kind of thing. So I think that with the show, you know, obviously they were able, like I said, to like retweak things and really think about like the whole grand picture of everything. So for them to know, you know, where they started with part 1 and part 2, and then they're like, okay, how are we going to adapt all of this into a show and sort of have people really be invested into Tommy as a character and not learn about him, you know, way later, you know. And we learned about Tommy, I think, even after the whole like Sam and what's his name? Sam and Henry, I think.
Yeah.
You know, and like it's like crazy that that's how far we got into the game before we learned about Joel's brother, you know? So for them to introduce him within the first episode and then have that be the motive as to why Joel wants to get out of like this, I guess, like camp or whatever, and sort of go out there and really find him and get that car battery and everything like that. So going back to like Sarah's death, holy fuck, man. Oh my God. Honestly, when I played the game the first time in 2012, it was spoiled for me. So like when I saw that scene in my room, I was like, okay, yeah, like fuck, this shit sucks. As like I guess like a high schooler. But like watching this show and seeing fucking Nico Park perform, I was like, oh my fucking God, man. I like damn near cried. I was like, holy shit. I knew this was going to happen, but oh my God, you know, like everything about that scene was just fucking perfect.
Yeah, it was still really good. Like it was still very sad. You know, I played obviously part 1, and you know, it still hits just as hard. Like it sucks. In both mediums, it sucks. And I did do a really good job just straight adapting it. Like it was perfect both in the game and in the show. They did a great job with that. And yeah, I think it's hard to sort of like, I kind of feel like how a manga reader feels, because I'm like, I've seen the source material, so I knew how hard it hit in the source material. So I'm really happy to see them adapt it straight up for a TV audience, because there's gonna be a lot of people like, like sound like my parents, right? They're probably gonna watch this at some point because they like watching the big HBO shows. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they feel about something that I know is a video game, but they adapted it perfectly for a TV show, which is great. So really, really interesting stuff there,
Yeah, I think Neil Druckmann said in the BuzzFeed interview, he's like, my parents get to finally see what I've been working on for all these fucking years. So, but yeah, moving on to the other parts of this first episode, we get introduced to the Fireflies. We get to see who Ellie is and actually see that, I guess, like relationship between her and fucking, what's her name? I forget. Marlene, yes. Between her and Marlene, and sort of how that all sort of happened and why she was like locked up. Because I was like, why is she locked up? And I was like, oh yeah, because because they want to make sure that she doesn't fucking turn. And I'm like, oh, okay, so now they know that like she's immune to it. So seeing all of that happen and then having that sort of storyline connect with Joel, and having the first interaction between Joel and Ellie being him like pretty much like slam choking her down on the floor, like fucking stay down kid kind of thing. So yeah, having everything sort of connect with each other is once again them planning everything out and how these characters are going to finally meet each other instead of just like pure coincidence and that kind of thing. He was looking for that guy for the car battery, and then the Fireflies were also trying to look for him, and then shit happened. So really do like how they were adapting that, but also them just introducing Ellie and the Fireflies and Marlene and everything like that was just really, really good.
Yeah, again, it just plays a lot more streamlined than in the game, because obviously you need gameplay in the game. So you do the whole level when you try to look for Robert for the guns, and then you meet them. There's a lot of like filler stuff because it's a video game. This in this adaptation, they could just focus on the parts that are like important. Like, obviously they're gonna have all the set piece moments because you need those, but I feel like you could kind of get rid of the gameplay part of it because you don't need it anymore. Yeah. But I could see how that could remove a lot of action from the show, because you're not gonna have as much of it. It doesn't make sense when like Joel's fighting like 40 guys with guns and he can just kill every single one of them. I'm actually really curious how they're gonna do like the Firefly base at the end. Like it's gonna be very interesting. But that's for way later. But in terms of just meeting Ellie and stuff, I think they did that stuff well. Like they really showed that the Fireflies were taking caution with her because she was bit, and that I guess that happened right after the DLC. So I wonder if we're gonna get flashbacks to the DLC, if the DLC is gonna be like its own episode. Like I don't know how they're gonna fit that in either.
I'm very curious on how they're going to pace that, because she already started talking to Tess about like when she was bit. She was like, I was by myself. And I was like, this bitch is lying.
Yeah,
she is lying right now. So yeah, I'm very curious to see as to when that story is going to come out, whether she's going to tell Joel about it, then we're going to see it all play out for that particular episode or even half an episode, So yeah, definitely a very good point to bring up. And also I really do like, I guess like the Easter eggs that they're putting into the show, to those people like us that played the games and saw like the little interactions that Joel and Ellie had as optional things, with that whole fucking hotel thing with the, ding, 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 ding. That was a optional thing that you can see within the game. And the fact that they put it into the show to really show that Ellie is still a kid, I really do like that.
I also really have to say both actors are like really, really good. Like they both really sell Joel and Ellie. They did a great job. Like Pablo Pascal, like fantastic Joel. Bella Ramsey also does really good as Ellie. Like whenever she like curses, I'm like, that just sounds like Ellie. So like really good job. So I think they sell both of the characters really well. I'm fully convinced that these two characters are Joel and Ellie to do a really good job portraying them. So yeah, major props to them. So yeah.
And having, I guess, like the final sequence within the episode of, Joel, seeing that gun being pointed at Ellie and his like father instincts come in, and seeing Ellie, I guess, being kind of like satisfied to see that, Joel is doing that for her in a sense, despite him being, like, I don't care about you. You're just cargo kind of thing. And I'm like, nah, bro.
I feel like they're sort of speeding that up, because in the game, it took a while for Joel to warm up to Ellie, I feel. I feel like this one's pretty immediate, that like, obviously he's still like keeping the distance and all that stuff. But I definitely feel like they're kind of planting the seeds a little earlier, that, it's like, oh, it's just like my daughter and stuff like that. Yeah. So they definitely are like putting those seeds in there a little earlier.
Like that one time when like Tess went up and then it was just them two and he was like, nope, we're not talking about this shit. We're not doing that. And I was like, yep, this is how that they're gonna do it. And I'm fine with that, honestly. You know, it may feel a little forced to some people, but I think that having that interaction with them two being like, no, we're not trying to get to know each other. We're not trying to get to, you know, where are you from? Where were you before? This and that, you know, kind of thing. So I really do like how they're doing it, you know, as of right now, obviously.
All right, so I guess we could move on to episode 2. So yeah, this one again, it has a cold opening to like sort of like before the outbreak really starts, and you know it starts in Jakarta, which is where it spread, and we're learning it was spreading through like flowers, I guess like contaminated flour or something like that, and the workers in that flower plant were sort of infected already, and they were biting each other. So they got this professor lady that sort of researched the cordyceps before this. And so she like the body, and you know, yeah. What I really like is they really change how this virus works. So it's not spores anymore. Like spores is not how it spreads anymore. Yeah, it acts a lot more like the real thing. Where I don't know if you ever seen pictures of this thing, but whenever it like infects like a host, like tentacles come out of it. I mean, it's not tentacles. I guess it's like roots. I guess like coming out of the thing. It's really gross, but this show kind of goes more into that, where like it really spreads to like weird tentacle stuff, and it's really gross. It comes out of their mouth, and that's really cool. Like I think it introduces a lot more like body horror stuff into it, which again it makes the virus a lot more scary than how it originally was. And apparently they didn't do the spore stuff because it's not as accurate. And I think the director was like, if it was airborne, everyone should just be dead. It's like, okay, I guess this makes more sense. But yeah, basically the research lady was like, yeah, we're all fucked. Like, because she was like, okay, who bit who? Okay, then who bit this lady that started all this? And the guy's like, we have no idea. And it's like, oh, we're fucked. So
blow up the town. And I was like,
she
oh,
just
fuck.
says like bomb everything. I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, it really does a good job. Again, really cementing the fact that humanity is like screwed, and you know, like the world as we know it is gonna change forever. So that really good code opening. I hope they keep doing more of these like pre-outbreak stuff, maybe to show like how humanity was trying to fix it, but it just didn't work by the end. I think that really adds a lot to the show, and I really have been enjoying these sort of like openings like this. So yeah, because obviously you're used to the video game stuff, like you know with the Joel Rally and all that, but you know it's really nice to get like sort of a new angle. It's like, oh, this is new stuff. Like I don't know what the hell is gonna happen here. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just like within episode 1, I think we missed on this when like that kid walked up.
Oh, yeah.
And then the kid ended up being infected. We're like, we're gonna get you new clothes, new toys, and then they just killed him. And I was like, oh my God! I was like, oh shit, that's the shoes. I was
He's
like,
fucking
oh my
dead,
God.
Dude. Yeah.
So yeah, you know, obviously like this cold opening, very very good. Really does sort of solidify where the world was at this point within 2003, and really seeing how, you know, it all sort of started and how people were reacting. And it wasn't just within the US of how, you know, people were sort of scrounging for everything. It was also where it all started. So I really do like that. And, you know, I hope that they don't do cold openings for every episode, because obviously it's going to get boring at some point. But I do feel like that, you know, having them within the first, you know, 2 episodes so far, really, really good. Really does sort of build the world more, even though, you know, we're already sort of getting glimpses of how the virus works. And speaking on that, you know, seeing on how Tess is like explaining how they work. And I was like, I don't think that's how they worked in the game, where like,
No,
you know, if you
it's
like
Vecna from Stranger Things.
Pretty much, if you like alert one of them, they're all gonna come swarming in. And I was like, is that really how it worked? And I was like, oh, that's how it's gonna connect to the State House at the end, which I'm sort of jumping ahead here, but yeah, that was very interesting to see on how they're sort of changing it up, which I really don't mind. You know, having the spores be taken out is, you know, going to change how certain scenes play out, just like within the State House afterwards, when Joel like went downstairs and sort of was like trying to fight those like, I guess like army guys. And it's like, that wouldn't really make sense, you know, narratively, to have them just like mow down all these people for a gameplay sense. But, you know, obviously for a story perspective, it doesn't really make sense in that perspective. So, you know, them changing stuff like that, I don't mind.
Yeah, I guess they want to like keep things focused. Like, you know, in the State House, they fight like Fedra people, But maybe it would have been too much for one episode. It's like, okay, like you're dealing with infected, now it's humans. It makes sense in a gameplay perspective because like you don't want to fight the same enemy type the whole time. Like, it's kind of boring. But like here, it's like they could keep focusing on the infected because the whole episode was kind of going through infected and learning more about them and all the different types of them. So I think it makes sense that the ending they change the, who attacks the state house at the end, basically. But we get that later. But yeah, basically the way like the virus works now is like like it has like the weird tentacle stuff and like it kind of grows everywhere. And if you step on one thing, the whole horde gets alerted. I think that's really cool. It sort of adds a more attention to it. Like you can't really kill them one by one, I guess, because then a lot of them get alerted now. So it makes it like a lot more dangerous. I think that's pretty cool. I think all the changes they did to the virus and stuff were really cool, and I'm glad the one thing that didn't change were the clickers. I think the clickers looked really good in live action. All their movements, the clicker noise, like all of it sounds exactly like the game. They move like the games, and they're just as like terrifying like in the game. They did a great job adapting them to the show.
Yeah, I mean, like, the clickers were 100% spot on, and seeing Joel just fucking miss every shot or whatever, I was like, yeah, that's great. Yeah. That's great. That's going to be just like how, some players are within the game. And, him, I guess, like, one-tapping all of the clickers would have made the scene a lot shorter and not as intense. But, yeah, just having that whole sequence with the two clickers just, like, sort of terrorizing them in a sense, and sort of them trying to figure out how to deal with them, and having Joel also explain to Ellie as they're sort of trying to go through it, like, trying to tell her really, really quietly, like they can't see but they can hear. And then I forget exactly what triggered it. I think Ellie did something by accident, and then all of a sudden everything fucking breaks loose. So yeah, really just like the horror elements and sort of like the suspenseful moments are really, really good. And just like within episode 1 with the runner that chases Joel and Sarah within that, I guess, like restaurant or whatever. Yeah. That shit was insane. I was like, yo, what the fuck? They were not this scary in the game. So
yeah, they were. Yeah.
So I'm glad that they are sort of, adapting them in the show for the better, making them a lot more scarier and a lot more threatening.
Yeah. I wonder how they're going to do like bloaters. Cause like,
oh my God.
I feel like bloaters are like they feel like you just can't win against them, and it feels a little more video gamey than like a clicker does. So I'm really wondering how they're gonna fit that in. So yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see when like a bloater should probably appear in like either next episode or the episode after, because I think you do it with Bill like when you're in like the school or whatever.
Oh yeah, the gymnasium.
A gymnasium thing, yeah. So that's gonna be interesting to see when they get up to that type of infected. But yeah, clickers, I think they did it really well. Like I think all that was super well done. They look great. Everything about it was really good. And then, sort of after all of that stuff, we get to the sort of like Tess stuff. Well, obviously, she gets bitten, like in the game. And this is sort of where like the changes happen. But they go to the state house, and again, instead of like Fedra is the more infected in this time. And I think, like I said before, I think it makes more sense this way because you don't want to overwhelm your viewer with a bunch of stuff happening. It's like, what's going on? And we were dealing with zombies. Now it's the soldier people. Why? So and obviously she does her whole thing, which is like Ellie's our last hope and stuff. And just like it basically played like exactly like the game, which is cool. Like her like oh, she's like our last hope and stuff. And this time. She kind of goes out like a lot more of a badass this time. Yeah. I feel like in the game, she kills like 2 Fedra people and then dies. And I'm like, okay, that was kind of lame. Like, I feel like this time she really got the sacrifice she deserved, even though it was like weird. So like she was infected already. So the infected were kind of just running past her. And then this other infected, I guess they know she's infected already. So it kind of does like, she kind of like kisses her, but like the tentacles under her mouth. The body horror is really good because it's like really weird and like gross and stuff. And I think it really sells the fact that, this is like a really weird ass virus that you don't really get from the game. So I kind of like it because it's fucking gross. So yeah. But anyway, she like blows up a bunch of stuff and they all die in the state house. And obviously that's like a big gameplay sequence, but again, you don't really need that in the show. So you could have Tessa's sacrifice mean a lot more in this sense. And I like that a lot. So
yeah, she doesn't just die off like off screen and then you look back and then her body's just fucking on the floor. So yeah, I really do like the changes that they made with Tessa's death, because it made it obviously a lot more cinematic, a lot more meaningful, and also just having the clicker just do that weird stuff with the tendril mouth. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Oh my god, this shit is like gross, disgusting, and pretty much just like solidifies her death. So obviously the lighter was gonna go off, but I know I saw a lot of people on Twitter, including myself. I was like, well, I didn't tweet this, but I was just like, why didn't she just like take one of the guns or whatever and just like shoot the floor? But that wouldn't have been as dramatic with the lighter.
You need the drama.
Yeah, you need the drama. And also, I think the lighter was like a Easter egg to Uncharted 4. I think it was Sam Drake's lighter. Like they modeled
cool.
it after. So yeah, it's maybe a little egotistical for Neil Druckmann to sprinkle everything that he's done in there.
Show me a Jack and Daxter reference, and I'll be. Show me a precursor orb or something, look, then I'll laugh.
The board game, who knows?
It could be. Yeah, you can show a plus of Daxter. That'd be pretty sick.
But yeah, I really do like the changes that they made at the end of the episode, and I cannot wait to see what they do for episode 3, because it is going to focus all on Bill, and I think that episode is going to focus on how his community handled everything. So there might not be that same cold opening. So yeah, I cannot wait for that episode. And yeah, it has been officially renewed for a season 2, literally just this morning. Yeah. So obviously the fact that the show garnered more people on the second episode was them being like, all right, yeah, this show's going to do well. So, I'm glad that we are getting a season 2, and that's probably going to adapt part 2. So hopefully that season will be able to hopefully redeem some people's view on The Last of Us.
Yeah, I wonder how much they're going to change from part 2. I mean, probably not much. They're probably going to keep it pretty similar as well. I'm hoping to just I know a bit about part 2, and hopefully to give maybe more screen time to Abby, or maybe they split things up a little more. Because now in the game, you go through a whole thing with Ellie, then it switches to Abby for another half of the game. I feel like it might be a more elegant way of doing that, and it might do that in the show. So that seems like there's a lot of fixes they could do with the narrative of 2. Again, I have yet to play it myself. I definitely want to play it before we get up to that point in the show. But I guess we'll see when that comes out. And I do wonder if it's going to be a 1 season thing, for part 2 or part 1. Part 1's probably going to be 1 season. They're rather going by it pretty fast. But part 2, I don't know if they're going to maybe stretch it out a little more, or it'll just be another 1 season thing again. Because, after part 2, they have no more source material. So what are you going to do? So I guess we'll see when we get up to that.
Yeah, I think that The Last of Us Part 2 could definitely warrant a maybe half season, or maybe just add more episodes on, make the episodes longer or whatever. Yeah. Because there's definitely a lot more story in there. In there to really, talk and discuss about. And like you said, elegantly sort of, intertwining Ellie and Abby's journey, and not just having one after the other, because that was sort of really hastily done, where it was when you were playing as Abby, a lot of people were just like, I'm not playing this shit. I don't want to play it. And then, you had people like me, and obviously a bunch of other people who did finish the game and be like, oh, okay, I can see what they were trying to do here, where it was okay, you do this thing as Abby, but what you're gonna walk into because you played as Ellie, and sort of what this scene's gonna have. So hopefully, if they adapt it well, I hope that they are able to splice everything in sequences, and not just having one half of the season be this, one half of the season be that, because that would definitely be them not learning from their mistakes, if you will. Because I think that's definitely a common critique for a lot of people that don't like part 2's story as much, including myself. I don't hate the game, but I think that the story could have been a lot more polished. But yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see, and sort of hopefully, once that sort of season gets rolling, we'll see, set photos and leaks and shit like that. But one last thing. Oh yeah. After you say your thing.
I was gonna say, I just think they're doing a really good job. Like you said, I think, in terms of video game adaptation, I know people bring up the Sonic movie and Arcane and Cyberpunk Edge Runners, but I don't really call those adaptations, because they're their own thing, right? Arcane is its own thing, Cyberpunk is its own thing, Sonic movie is doing its own thing. This is probably the best straight up adaptation from a video game to a movie, because the only one I could think of is the Resident Evil movies, and those are good for their own reasons, but they're not really great. So I think this is probably the best straight adaptation we've seen from a video game to a show. So yeah, just major props to them. I think they're doing a great job, and hopefully it keeps up the quality throughout the rest of the episodes. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that, when it does come to a adaptation, if you will, yeah, this is definitely the best one. I can definitely see your argument of being like, oh, like those other things aren't necessarily adaptations.
Yeah.
They're taking the
adjacent,
source material and then they're, making a whole new thing and doing its own thing, which,
yeah.
I agree with. And, some people will, still call those adaptations, and it is what it is. But I think that this one in and of itself is like, really trying to adapt what the original source did and make it for TV.
Yeah.
And the point that I was trying to get at earlier was a news story came out that the co-creator of The Last of Us has not been credited in the show. Bruce Straley's relationship with Naughty Dog has not obviously been the greatest after he left. I think that within this Polygon article, he said that he left after Uncharted 4 because he was unhappy sort of doing that project and sort of leaving him feeling burnt out. So it's kind of strange that for this season in particular, where he did work on the first Last of Us game with Neil Druckmann, despite Neil being, one of, if not like the main person behind the story, Bruce Lee did do a lot of like the gameplay stuff, or Bruce Stanley, my apologies.
Yeah.
Him doing a lot of the gameplay stuff. That doesn't mean that he didn't work on the story with Neil, kind of thing. So it is kind of strange that, they didn't want to credit him or anything like that. And I think it's, probably because they didn't want to go through like barriers and, paywalls or whatever else he was trying to get at. But I think that, he is in the right to get whatever royalties and whatever credits that he deserves for this show because he was a part of the original game's success.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I never like it when, co-creators or whatever, they leave in like bad terms, and then it's like, okay, well, it's like you never made it anymore. And when they do future projects, I mean, that's not how that works. It still like have to be credited for what they did, even if they left in bad terms or whatever. You kind of have to like still kind of acknowledge that yes, they did do this thing, so you gotta give them credit for it. So yeah, like I feel like it's not right to really just leave this person out of the credits and not get anything for it.
Yeah, it does definitely feel a little strange. I know that there's no update on this yet. I know that he really made this like a point about unionization, which is a good thing. So we don't know what's going to happen with that, because I do feel like that he does deserve some sort of, credit for this show, because like I said, he worked on the source material and he is the reason why the game was so successful.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that is about it. Is there anything else you'd like to add, good Sa?
No, that's everything.
All right. So thank you guys for listening to the Travis and Damian podcast, episode 105. We will see you guys 2 weeks from now with another episode.
See ya.